What's up, America? This is Dr. Nitin Chod, and in this training video, I'm going to talk to you about the bill that was approved by the House and signed by the President and is now law that gives $1,000 worth of stimulus checks for small business owners through the EIDL grant program. Now, a $484 billion bill was just signed. In fact, on the 21st of April, Tuesday, it was passed by the Senate. On the 23rd of April, Thursday, it was signed by the House. It was passed by the House. And on Friday, the President signed it into law. This $484 billion bill essentially does three things. One, it replenishes two small business relief programs, the 3P program, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and Grant Program, which is where you get the $1,000 stimulus check. I'll explain that in a couple of minutes. It also provides significantly more funding for hospitals, and it provides more funding for testing so we can try and get ahead of this pandemic. So the goal is to significantly expand our testing capacity nationwide, because the more tests we can do, the faster we can get ahead of this pandemic and the faster we can all get back to work, which is what all of us want. Now, this bill had strong bipartisan support. 388 people voted for the bill and 5 voted against the bill. So now let's get into the specifics of the bill and how we arrive at the $1,000 stimulus check per employee through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. It's actually the forgivable loan portion, which is essentially like a grant. So the way the bill is set up is that it funds about $310 billion towards the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, the last time the Paycheck Protection Program was issued, it got exhausted pretty quickly because some of the large banks, some of the large lenders they had better systems, they had better mechanisms. They essentially exhausted the money, and some of their bigger clients were able to get the 3P loan, which left a lot of small businesses, small community banks out of the mix. So in order to rectify that situation, what they've done this time is $60 billion out of these new funds. So $60 billion out of the $310 billion that's now been allotted towards the Paycheck Protection Program will be set aside for small, medium banks and community lenders, which is actually a good thing, because small banks, small credit unions and community lenders who have pre-existing relationships as SBA lenders with small businesses nationwide will then be able to get access to that money and distribute that money to those smaller local businesses, because those smaller local businesses may or may not have relationships with the larger banks that essentially came in and swooped up all the money from the 3P program in the first go around. Also, roughly $60 billion goes towards the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and the way that's split up is that $50 billion out of that $60 billion will go towards the loan program, and $10 billion will go towards the grant, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Forgivable Loan Advance, which is essentially like a grant, which, by the way, is where you get your $1,000 stimulus check if you're a small business. I'll get to that in a couple of minutes and walk you through how that works. But it's important to understand everything that's included in the bill first, so that we can then understand how the process works and get to how we can access our money. Now, $75 billion was set aside for hospitals and healthcare workers, which is important because they face several budget gaps created by a slowdown in elective surgeries, which basically means less income for the hospitals, and a surge of patients who are sick with this pandemic that we are facing. Also, $25 billion was set aside to speed up testing efforts for this virus across the country, and the whole idea is to again do a whole lot more testing so we can get ahead of this and get back to work quickly. In the last few weeks, 26 million Americans, which is 16% of the total workforce in the United States of America, has not been able to work, either because of government ordered closures or because they were laid off or furloughed because of this pandemic. So this essentially is a huge crisis. A lot of us are struggling out there, and we need this stimulus to arrive as quickly as possible. If you're a small business, you need the 3P loan. And in this video, I'm about to now teach you how you can get access to the $1,000 stimulus check per employee through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Actually, you get a forgivable loan advance, which you won't have to pay back even if you're not approved for the loan, or even if your loan is in process. So let's get right to that. Now, if you go to the Small Business Administration website right now, so as you can see on the screen, all you have to do is go to sba.gov sba.gov. You'll scroll right to the top of the page and you'll click on that little link right at the top of the page, and you'll see where it says small business guidance and loan resources. You're going to scroll down a little bit and you're going to click on the link that says funding options for this current pandemic. So you just click on the link and now it'll open up a page where it starts to give you more information. And now you'll see another link that says click here to learn more about available SBA loan and debt relief options for this particular situation. So you're going to click on that, and then we open up a page that essentially gives you a list of all the relief options. We'll scroll down a little bit and then you'll click on the link that says 10K advance. Now, this is the economic injury disaster loan, which is basically a loan. I believe the interest rate is 3.75% and the loan payments are deferred, I believe, for as long as a year. But the more important part is the initial portion of the loan, you get it as a loan advance, a forgivable loan advance. Now, when the EIDL loan was first announced a few weeks ago, the Small Business Administration ran out of funding very quickly. So what the Small Business Administration did was they started providing a forgivable loan advance of up to $1,000 per employee, up to a maximum of $10,000 per company, and then the money ran out pretty quickly. So it's quite likely that they'll do the same thing this time. But the important thing to remember is step one, you have to apply for this loan. Step two is most likely the Small Business Administration is going to pull your credit, and then after they pull the credit, what they do is they then provide you the forgivable loan advance. They directly deposit it into your bank account, when the bank account that you provide during the application process. I'll actually walk you through the application process in a minute or two. And then shortly after that, now when I say shortly after that, this could be a few days, it could even be a couple of weeks. Shortly after that, the Small Business Administration sends you an email asking you to log into your loan portal account, and when you log in, you'll see how much money you've been approved for, the loan I mean, and then you can decide whether you want to take the loan or not. Now, since all the payments for this loan are deferred for up to a year, I think it makes a lot of sense to take the funds because you're not paying any interest for a year. And then after a year, if you don't need the funds, there's probably a provision to pay it back without incurring any costs. So essentially, if you're getting to borrow money at no cost for up to a year, you should take it. And even beyond that, if you pay 3.75%, you can use the funds if you need to use them for your business. So you can see on the screen, it says this loan advance will provide up to $10,000 of economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing temporary difficulty. So let's click on that page to learn more. And at the time that I'm recording this training, it says notice lapse in appropriations, which basically means that the money ran out. But this is the important part. By the time you watch this training, whenever that is, there is a very high probability that this page will be open for a finite period of time. What that means is you're no longer going to see notice lapse in appropriations, and you're actually going to see a link that lets you go to the application form. This is the important part. You want to go to the application form. It takes less than 5 minutes to fill it out, and you want to fill it out as quickly as possible. I'm going to quickly go over some of the elements and some of the components you need to have in place so that you can fill out the application form. But I strongly encourage you to bookmark this link so you can come back to it later as soon as the applications are open and submit as quickly as possible, because this money is also going to run out. Let's quickly go over some of the components of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Let's go to the eligibility section. Actually, before we go to the eligibility section, it says this advance will provide economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing a temporary loss of revenue. Funds will be made available following a successful loan application. The loan advance will not have to be repaid, which means, let's say hypothetically you're approved for a loan of $100,000, and let's say you have 5 employees. What the SBA did the last time, which they're most likely to do this time, and my guess is they'll do it faster because now they're sort of better prepared for, they've learned from what happened in the last couple of weeks. If you have 5 employees, there's a very high probability that you'll get $1,000 for each employee deposited into your account if you haven't received that money already, provided you submit the application quickly when this portal opens. So the eligibility, it says the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan provides vital economic support to small businesses to help overcome the temporary loss of revenue they're experiencing as a result of the current pandemic. This program is for any small business. Now, this is the important part. With less than 500 employees, which by the way is most of the businesses in America, most of the small businesses, and this says it includes sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and self-employed person. What this means is, if you have your own small business, even if you're a 1099, let's say you work for someone else, or you're an independent contractor, or you're a sole proprietor, and let's say you have even if you're a W2 employee, but you have a side business which qualifies as a business, which is something that you do independently, you oversee your own operations. As long as you self-attest to that during the application, you will then get up to $1,000 per eligible employee. At least this is what the SBA did the last time, up to a maximum of $10,000. So all you got to do is apply. When in doubt, just go ahead and apply, because chances are you will get these funds if you're amongst the first few people to be in to apply when the economic injury disaster loan portal opens. Again, when you go to this page, by the time you're watching this training, the portal will most likely be open. In fact, if you scroll down at the time that I'm recording this training, and there's a report for EIDL advances on April 20th, and you can actually open that and you can download the PDF. And if you look at the PDF, me, for example, I'm in the state of New Jersey. I see that as far as the economic injury disaster loan advance was concerned, in the state of New Jersey, almost 25,000 applications were processed as far as this, at the time of this recording, based on this report, which was generated on the 20th of April. By the time you get there, the report will probably be updated. So in New Jersey, almost 25,000 businesses were funded, and the amount that was funded is also available right next to it. So this program is happening. It is being rolled out. Money is being handed out, and you want to make sure that you apply as quickly as you can when the portal opens. So when the portal does open, you're going to go through a few steps, and it's going to take less than 5 minutes to complete the application, assuming the application is the same as it was the last time. And I have every reason to believe that it's going to be almost identical. You're going to go through what's called as an eligible entity verification, which basically means you're going to self-attest that you're an applicant and your business has less than 500 employees. That's one of the attestations. You can also attest that you're an individual who operates under a sole proprietorship with or without employees, or as an independent contractor. So these are the two attestations which will probably apply to most of the individuals watching this video training. All you have to do is check one of those buttons, one of those radio buttons, and then move on to the next step of the attestation process. Then you have to make some attestations about whether or not you're an agricultural enterprise, whether or not you derive some part of your revenue from gambling, whether or not you do any lobbying, or whether you're a state, local, or municipal government entity, and you have to make an attestation that you're not a member of Congress. Then you get to the important part, which is you put in your business name, you put in your trade name, and then you get to the section where you put in either your EIN, which is your employee identification number if you're set up as a business, or your social security number if you're operating as a sole proprietor or if you're an independent contractor. You put in your organization type. You have to specify whether or not you're a not-profit organization, and then you have to specify whether you're a part of a franchise. You also have to attest whether your business is owned by another business, and that pretty much sums up most of the important points in the application. You do have to put in your bank account information, your bank account number, and your routing number, because that is where the Small Business Administration will deposit your forgivable loan advance. Now, what the Small Business Administration said during the last round of funding was that it didn't matter whether you were denied for the loan or whether the loan was being processed, you would get the loan advance depending on the number of employees, and that would be forgivable. In other words, it would not have to be paid back. So it's essentially like a grant. This is nothing more than a stimulus check for small businesses in the latest stimulus bill. Now keep in mind, this was part of the previous bill, but then the funding got exhausted, and now there's a significant amount of funding. There's $60 billion, out of which $10 billion is actually allocated just for these forgivable loan advances, these grants, these $1,000 stimulus checks, if you will, and the remaining $50 billion is set aside for the actual loan component of the EIDL program, which is the loan that I talked to you about at the 3.75% interest. Finally, you have to attest to your gross revenue, your cost of goods sold, information about the owners, the first last name of the owner, and more information about them. And that's pretty much it. On the last page, you provide your bank account information, your routing number, and there's a checkbox that says you would like to be considered for the loan advance up to $10,000. Make sure you check that box and then submit the application, and then at that point you have to sit back and wait. Now, there is one important thing that's worth discussing, and that is your credit score. Now, the Small Business Administration, as far as I know, is running a credit inquiry on the credit of the owners. And then what it's doing is, based on that credit score, as far as I know, it's issuing the actual loan advances. But I've also talked to individuals where their credit was frozen and they were still able to get the loan advance. So if I was in your shoes, I would make sure that your credit is not frozen. That would be something I would personally do if I was going to go through this process. If your credit is not frozen, the SBA can immediately pull your credit, and then that may make it faster for you to get your $1,000 stimulus check. However, again, I have known individuals who had their credit frozen but who still got the actual stimulus check. The important sequence of events here is as follows. Step 1, you apply. Step 2, expect the Small Business Administration to pull your credit. And step 3, what happens is you will then get an email from the Small Business Administration asking you to log into your loan portal. You will get an application number, which is really important. You want to hold on to that. By the way, please don't share your application number with anyone. I see a lot of websites out there that ask you to track your EIDL loan status by putting in your application number, by putting in your business name. Please don't do that, because if you put in your business name, your email, and your application number, that allows someone else to actually access your loan portal account directly or indirectly. That may allow them to somehow get into your account, and you don't want that. So please do not share your EIDL application number with anyone. Please make sure that when you log in to check it, you're the only one with access to the loan portal account. Don't put your information in any website that's not a legitimate SBA website, because you don't want someone else to gain access to your loan portal account. So ladies and gentlemen, that in a nutshell was the $1,000 stimulus check in the new stimulus bill that has been signed into law by the president. And if you're a small business, you can get your $1,000 stimulus check per employee, and you could get up to $10,000 depending on the number of employees that you have. At least this was what the Small Business Administration did in the last go around of the economic injury disaster loan. My recommendation would be that you keep checking the SBA.gov website. Like I said, at the time I'm recording this training, there was a lapse in appropriations, which essentially meant that the portal to apply wasn't open. But there's a high probability that this portal will be open by the time you check this video training. I would anticipate that sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours, this portal would be open. And when it's open, I want you to apply right away. I want you to be ready with all your information. I want you to be ready to make those attestations. Be ready with all the information about your business. Be ready with your tax ID number. Be ready with your bank account number, your routing number, and definitely check that box that says I would like to be considered for a forgivable loan advance up to $10,000. It's pretty straightforward. I want you to be ready to do it. I want you to submit it. And if your credit is frozen, it might make sense to unfreeze it for a short period of time. If you like this video, please go ahead and click like below. Please also subscribe so you can get future notifications. Please also smash the notification button so you get instantly notified about important updates like this in the future. As always, I'm here to assist you as best as I can. Please submit your comments below. I'll do my best to review every comment, and I'll do my best to assist wherever I can. And if you have any questions about this, please contact the Small Business Administration. You can also talk to an accountant. I really appreciate you watching this. I hope this was helpful, and I'll bring you more news on stimulus checks, and together we'll stay strong and get through this together. Thank you so much.